Hey everyone, so I've been messing around with the K.O a lot lately, and I've learned a lot of tips and tricks that I want to share, mostly related to extending notes, then kind of making them sound okay when they're, stretched way out, and then some thoughts about playing chords on this, as well as how to transpose something via MIDI, and a really quick tip for when you're using these two knobs and run out of space. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm going to sample a wind chime that I got as a wedding gift. So I'm going to select this bank, and I'm going to just enter in, let's do 707. And I'm going to sample in this wind chime from the mic. So this might take a second here, but I'm going to adjust the level and record it for a sec. Okay, that's good enough. So what I'll do from here is let's go ahead and go back to sound, and now I'm going to adjust it. So something that I forgot to mention before is the way that I'm using my K.O is kind of as an extension to the OPZ. So I view A, B, C, and D as being their own tracks. So instead of each pad as a track, I think of A through D as a track. And this lets me do a lot of sound design and manipulation by using the fader, because I know it's going to apply to everything on here and I don't have to, adjust it depending on which pad is being played. So let's listen to our sample again. Boy, that is much louder than I intended for it to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's actually adjust the trim. So I'm going to go into sound edit mode by hitting Shift and Sound. And let's adjust the start point here. So I'm going to fine tune it by holding Shift and adjusting the X knob. So I am out of space here. So the first trick I want to show you is that I can get more space by quickly going to System. So I'm still holding Shift. I hit System, reset it all the way, and go back to Sound Edit, because that's where I was. And now I can start all the way over. Similarly, if I was like, oh man, I overcompensated, I could move it back to the middle. So let's put it into keys mode here. Okay, so we have that sound. Let's put it into key, the sound type. Okay, doesn't sound too pretty, but there's a few more tricks I'm going to use. One is I'm going to time stretch this by bar, make it a 4-bar, last 4 bars. So that's very slow, obviously. And I'm going to actually trim it a bit more. So it's just stretching out this small, 1 second thing over 4 bars. It sounds kind of jittery, so this is where I think a lot of the fader effects and things like that come in, as well as the envelope. So let me change the attack a little bit. Whew, that's still pretty loud, isn't it? So in this case, I'm actually going to bring up sound, and I'm going to pitch this down an octave. Then I'm going to go fader, and I'm going to tune it down another octave. Or sorry, I hit fader and then tune, and then I brought this all the way down to -12, which is 12 semitones down or 1 octave down. Okay, so that sounds better, but I think it still sounds a little shrill, so I'm going to take off, so I took off some of that high end using the low pass filter. High pass filter, I'll just take out some of that low end too. So this is still just that 1 second clip, but now it's lasting a lot longer. We can make it more intense by going to time here though. And I'm going to actually make it last 10 times longer by sliding the fader all the way down. And when it says 0.1, that's 0.1 playback, or it's going to play for, I think, 10 bars. I don't love how it cuts off immediately, so I'm going to, oh crap. Okay, so I just accidentally changed the sound because I forgot I wasn't in sound edit mode. This umbrella though means that I can undo that. Whew, okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up sound edit mode, and I'm going to add even more attack to that envelope. I'm going to add some release, so that way when I let go it keeps going for a bit, which gives it that kind of floaty sound. But there's still that jitteriness, and this is where I actually think the modulation comes in handy a lot. I've just fallen in love with the sound of it, but at its most extreme, it's pretty pronounced and pretty obvious. But as you go through these lower values, I think it just kind of corrects that sort of jittery sound. Not perfectly, but it does fix it a little bit. It makes it less noticeable, in my opinion, at least. So the last thing I'll do is I'll add this to the effects track. And let's select an effects. Let's do, we could do reverb. That's kind of fine. Let's do, what about chorus? Okay, so that's okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to record just a basic 4-bar chord progression. First, actually, let me talk really briefly about chords and playing chords. So if I open up system settings and I turn this on to major scale mode, which is 311, enter, said major, that means that to make a triad, I just have to enter any sort of 1-3-5 pattern. And that just leads to only a few different shapes on this. And I'm still learning these, but hopefully I can help accelerate your learning to, just like I've kind of accelerated mine by thinking about this a lot. So this is a basic triad where you have this 1, 3, and 5, the same shape anywhere. So this is a triad with the root starting here. If the root starts here, you have a sort of upside down version of that same triad. If the root is on 3, for example, you would instead have this kind of diagonal shape of 3, skip 1, 5, skip 1, 7. And that applies anywhere that you want this to be the root note. But, as you might imagine, you're going to run out of space here. So, if I know that I want to play the 5, so I'm saying that this is my 1, this is my 3, and now I need to add a 5. If I think of this as being 7, 6, 5, then this is the inversion that I'm looking for. So that's just a lot of fancy words to say that you can really easily apply music theory to these pads, and I was really happy to learn that because I don't know much music theory. I know just barely enough to get by, and this makes it actually a little bit easier, I think. So let me just record in a pretty basic pattern. I think this is what I thought of last night, but we'll find out. That's definitely not what I played before, but let's roll with it. What if I think that this is too high? Let me transpose this whole group. I'm going to hit keys, then I'm going to go back to our sound edit. I'm going to enter MIDI. So when you enter MIDI, the X knob will affect the channel that it's sending out on. But even if it's off, it will transpose the notes if you change the MIDI root note, which is the Y knob. Let's go ahead and go from, it starts you off on C4, and so let's bring us up to C5, because actually, believe it or not, I have to reset this knob, so I'm going to go to System. Believe it or not, this is opposite. So if I increase the root note to C5, it's going to make this an octave lower than it was. Okay, so if I apply this more precisely, usually I like to use it just to adjust by octaves because that really gives you a lot of flexibility, I think, in terms of being able to, lower it or raise it a lot. But if I wanted, like, let's bring it all the way back to C4 where it starts off by default. If I wanted to raise this by a fifth, I would have to think opposite. So I know a fifth is 7 semitones up. So I'm going to transpose this 7 semitones down to make it a fifth, or to bring it up a fifth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops. So now this is transposed up a fifth. I don't really like it there, so I'm going to bring it back down again by an octave. Okay, so now that we have a chord progression, even if it's not like my favorite, let's go ahead and add in some drums really quickly. I'm going to use group B for the drums, and I'm just going to go ahead and add in some sounds really quick. I'm going to put just the basic kick there, basic snare there. There we go. Okay, so quick time stretch tip for you that I just recently learned. So let's take this kick and let me go to time mode. So right now there's no time stretch, but if I put it to bar and I make this like a half note long, I think that's kind of cool. It adds, I think, a lot of depth to it. Oops, let's make it a quarter. So that's it, the full thing. And if I stretch it way out like that, then I could always pitch it down. And I just think it gives it kind of like a very different sound from before. I'm going to first of all start off, let's just add in some hi-hats, and let's see what it would sound like if I just... Okay, cool. So that's about the pace I want to go, but I want control over the velocity. So I'm opening up system settings and I'm entering in 302 to put the velocity on low. Going to arm it for recording, hold down timing, and then I'm going to just start it with the hi-hats. And then next I'm going to go ahead and change it to be quantized, so that way as I'm entering in my kick and my snare, it's forgiving. So I'll wait for this next time when it goes around. So I'm finding that kick pretty annoying now after having heard it so many times in a row. So what I'll do is I'm just going to actually take off what I just did, and I will return it to where it was before with the pitch. And I gotta decrease the sound again, or the volume. Maybe I'll adjust the... Okay, let me undo that. Oh, I just undid it and undid the edits to this too. Oh well. Shouldn't take too long to fix, right? I keep making the same mistake, don't I? Okay. Okay, so that was obviously a bit chaotic and just a bunch of tips kind of scattered about, but hopefully you learned something from this. Just to quickly recap, I discussed extending notes through adjusting the time fader and adjusting the time parameter in the sound edit menu. I talked about using other sound parameters to sort of adjust the jitteriness that happens with that. I talked about using the MIDI setting to transpose a group. I talked about the different ways that you can play in chords, and I talked about that little trick to make the kick last longer. So I think that's a lot of, oh, and also the X and Y knob. So I think that's most of what I've picked up so far, but I'm hoping to make more of these videos in the future, and I hope that you find this helpful. So thank you for watching.